A mysterious gate suddenly appears in Ginza, Tokyo, where fantasy creatures led by men in Roman armor come out from it and attack the people with terrorism. Yoji Itami, a JSDF reservist who was attending a nearby Dojin convention, takes action by organizing the police to evacuate the civilians into a palace to protect them before the JSDF arrives to stop the invaders. Due to his actions, Itami is promoted to first lieutenant and celebrated as a national hero. The appearance of the gate and massacre of Japanese civilians, dubbed the Ginza Incident, prompts the incumbent prime minister to take action by proclaiming Japan will send a JSDF task force backed by the US to the special region, the world beyond the gate, to not only explore the new world but also capture and demand reparations from those responsible for the attack. After 3 months of preparation, the new prime minister sends off the JSDF task force to their mission to the special region with Itami as part of the task force. After finally arriving, the task force encounter an army waiting for them and prepares for battle. The army sent by the Empire to deal with the Japanese forces stationed at Alness Hill, where the gate is located, was obliterated by Japanese fire superiority. Emperor Molt calls for the vassal states to attack them, just to be defeated with huge casualties as well. A move planned in advance by the emperor to avoid the vassal states taking advantage of the empire's weakened state. As Emperor Molt decides to delay a possible advance from the JSDF with scorched earth maneuvers, the President of the United States decides to leave the investigation of the special region to the JSDF for a while due to hopes that Japan will fail its venture into the special area, allowing other countries to take control. Itami Yuji is assigned to lead the 3rd Recon Squad, created to survey the nearby cities and points of interest. After passing by the village of Koda, the 3rd Recon Squad finds a massive fire dragon burning the nearby forest and then attacking and destroying a nearby settlement. While looking for survivors, Itami finds an unconscious elf woman inside a well by sheer coincidence. Taking the unconscious elf with them, the 3rd unit returned to the village of Koda, and upon learning about the fire dragon, the villagers decide to evacuate as well, assisted by the Japanese soldiers, where they are later joined by 2 mages, Lele and her master. Taking heed of the situation, a group of bandits decide to attack the villagers, just to be vanquished by Rory Mercury, an apostle of the dark god Emroy. While escorting the refugees, Itami's party rendezvous with Rory, and taking a special interest on Itami, she decides to accompany them as well. However, the fire dragon appears to attack the convoy, and the 3rd unit manages to drive it away, after blowing off one of its front legs with Rory's help. After giving a funeral for the casualties of the battle, the 3rd unit part ways with the villagers, and Itami decides to take the rest of the refugees as well as Rory, the elf woman, and Lele back to Alness Hill. At a local bar, Pina, Hamilton, Norma, and Gray are discussing what to do while the patrons laugh at a bartender claiming how the men in green drove away a flame dragon. The woman comes over to refill Hamilton's drink, and though Norma disbelieves they defeated a flame dragon, Hamilton is more believing and gives a coin to the bartender to inquire more. The bartender tells her about the JSDF's helicopters and how they drove the dragon off. Arriving at base, Itami's superior officer is extremely furious at Itami, who brought back refugees back to base without permission because he suddenly had communications issues. Commander Hazoma allows it because it will allow the JSDF to learn more about the special region's inhabitants and their culture and politics. Allowed to shelter the refugees, Itami's superior officer places Itami in charge of the refugees, including their food, housing, and more tediously paperwork. As Itami distributes the jobs to the members of his squad, Lieutenant Yanagita calls Itami to him to talk to him about the importance of the special region. Yanagita then explains how Itami is currently the closest person to the special region's inhabitants. During this time, the refugees are marveling at the foreign construction equipment and housing of the JSDF. Lele quickly realizes the importance of learning Japanese and is keen at quickly picking up their language and culture. Meanwhile, in China, President Deco Dong is getting increasingly more interested in the special region and ideally would like to move half the population of China to the special region. The base in the special region has finally established a bath, and all the heroines take a bath together and converse on all the new things they have seen today and try to establish each other's backgrounds. In bath taking, Elsewhere in the special region, Pina learns that Duran survived the Battle of Alnus Hill and explains to Princess Pina the sheer power of the JSDF. He refuses to divulge how strong they are, telling her to go see the hill for herself. She tells Norma to move the main unit, which Hamilton interprets as a suicidal charge if the stories were true. Pina tells her she doesn't intend to do that, and they have to visit Alnus regardless. Gray informs her that they will be stopping by Italica as they journey to Alnus. Tuca believes that they will have to sell themselves to the JSDF for make ends meet, though Lillet arrives and takes her and Rory to the battlefield, where there are plenty of winged dragon corpses. Lillet tells them that the JSDF apparently aren't interested in the scales, and as they fetch a high price, they won't need to sell themselves. The heroines gather 2 bags worth of scales and ask Itami to drive them to Italica, which he agrees to. As the 3rd recon team travels to Italica, the recon team notices a smoke plume that is coming from the city. They enter a battle mode as they slowly progress toward Italicia. Meanwhile, in Italica, the city is under siege by remnants of the Allied army, who have turned into banditry. They attack the southern gate, though they realize that they cannot break through and retreat. Princess Pina, who is commanding the defense forces, feels relieved for the time being and retires to the mansion in the city. In the mansion, the clan formal servants take care of Pina as she rests after the gruesome battle. Before she goes to sleep, she asks the Countess to throw water on her in case there is trouble again. In Pina's dream, she remembers how she started her Order of Knights. As a little kid, Pina was determined to start an Order of Knights and trained her friends from a young age. Grey Aldo, a knight, was assigned to protect and train Pina and her small order, which was treated like a joke by many royals. Hamilton is seen as a clumsy person, especially since she tripped as she tried to figure out how to march. Although Gray admits that he does not really like the job, he understands that because of his birth family, he can only move up the military ranks by training Pina. After 7 years of hard training, Pina's order becomes a legitimate group as the Rose Knight Order, although they are more of an honor guard. Pina resents this fact that the group is only an honor guard and thirsts for real combat. Soon, after the failed defense of the gate, she gets her chance. Pina is splashed awake by the Countess, as there seems to be some unknown vehicles outside the walls of Italica. As she assesses the nature of the group that approaches the gate, she quickly realizes that if an Emroy was on the bandit side, Italica would have been captured. Therefore, she concludes they may be neutral, and the best way to get them on their side would be to befriend them. In her rush to open the gate, she fails to notice Itami standing on the other side and smacks him unconscious with the door. The 3 heroines wake Itami up inside the walls and at the same time berate the princess for hitting Itami in the face. As Itami wakes up from his slumber, he is greeted by the sight of Rory looking at him and the Kuwahara shouting over the radio if he was safe. After this, the princess, as a gesture of kindness, shows them around the mansion and explains the social-economical history of the city. After conveying his urge to defend the city, Princess Pina assigns 3rd Recon to defend the South Gate, which was heavily damaged by the enemy assault. 3rd Recon sets up in the Southern Gate as NVG, night vision gear, is distributed. Itami struggles to put the NVG on his helmet, so Rory helps him out. Rory asks Itami why he is defending an enemy city, to which Itami replies that the JSDF want to befriend the people of the special region and show Pina that she should negotiate with them rather than fight a pointless war. Itami also knows that Pina has placed them in a bad position, but does not seem to mind. Rory is content with the fact that she can go crazy again. At 0311 hours, the bandits attack Italica again. However, rather than going for the south wall, they attack the east. The defenders are caught off guard and are quickly killed. The bandits drag the bodies of the slain defenders to the secondary wall, greatly angering the defenders there. As 3rd Recon watches as the east gate is burned to the ground, Rory seems to be in a very distressed state. She is clutching her body, suggestively, and appears to be in a state of euphoria. She is holding herself back from acting on her bodily instincts, though. Her body is in this state because as an apostle of Emroy, all the souls of the dead flow through her to Emroy, which acts like an aphrodisiac. Back at the East Gate, the Eastern commander, Normako Igloo is killed in action, which boosts the morale of the bandits. It becomes clear that the bandits have no thread of sanity left in them, as they declare that they are looking for a place to die after facing hell on Alness Hill. Finally, not able to hold back her bodily instincts, Rory runs toward the East Gate despite no orders to reinforce the East Gate, forcing Itami, Kurabayashi, and Tomita to follow her in their Type 73 light truck. Meanwhile, Princess Pina undergoes a mental freeze, as she is ambivalent about what to do now. The East Gate has been broken into, and the inexperienced civilians who are defending the secondary gate are easily defeated by the more experienced bandits. At the same time, the 4th Combat Unit is about 5 minutes out from the east of Italica and is commencing battle preparations. Rory, who had run from the South Gate, arrives as the bandits try to attack the secondary wall. She easily overpowers the bandits' strongest member and defends the secondary wall. As she prepares to deal with the bandits, a tow missile hits the wall, followed by an assault by the entire 4th Combat Unit. The CAS, an airborne cavalry, desecrates the bandits on the outside of the wall, quickly leaving little survivors. On the inside of the East Gate, Kurabayashi, Itami, and Tomita join in the fray, albeit Kurabayashi charged into the enemy without regard for her own safety. Kurabayashi and Rory sync their movements together to cover each other's backs as they tear through the bandits. Itami and Tomita are forced to cover the blind spots for the two belligerent petite girls, laying down covering fire whenever possible. After witnessing the defeat at Alness Hill and the anachronistic technology of the JSDF, the commander of the bandits loses the rest of his little sanity. As he dies to Rory's axe, he repeatedly asks if this was the right direction for war. By this time, the bandits on the outside of the wall have been cleared, so cobras start to clean up inside the walls. Giving Itami warning beforehand, the cobra prepares to destroy the remaining bandits inside the wall as Itami and Tomita carry away, flailing Kurabayashi and docile Rory. Using its 20mm Gatling gun, the cobra cut down the remaining bandits before flying away to deal with any other bandits. After taking care of the immediately dangerous bandits, the 4th Combat Unit starts to fast rope soldiers to help contain the situation and capture any POWs or help aid injured civilians. Viewing the situation as a complete loss for the Empire, Princess Pina fears that the JSDF will conquer Italica and may take Pina as a slave. She is completely thrown off guard by the fact the negotiation terms of the treaty barely gave the JSDF anything that the Empire considers as a winner's portion. It only gave the JSDF tax exemptions and free passage. Finally, after being up for more than 24 hours, 3rd Recon looks forward to being able to rest after traveling back to Alness. But their plans are thrown off by the fact the Rose Order of Knights finally arrived on 3rd Recon's way out of Italica. The Order doesn't know about the treaty yet, so they treat 3rd Recon as an enemy. Realizing that if 3rd Recon were to hurt the Knights, then it would violate the treaty. In an act of self-sacrifice, Itami gets out of his vehicle, buying enough time for the rest of the company to escape. In the foothills near Italica, members of 3rd Recon are observing the town's guards in order to gain information regarding the whereabouts of Itami. As they discern a plan to enter the town, Kurata mentions how Itami is a ranger, which infuriates Kurabayashi because of their requirements. At the same time, Pina throws a cup of wine at Boses because she had tortured Itami on the same day they signed the treaty. Worried about the repercussions, she has the head maid and her fellow servants take care of Itami. After having Itami taken away, Gray suggests to simply apologize, aware that they would be destroyed if they fought the JSDF. At Italica, a civilian sentry expresses his disgust with the Imperials. He notices the priestess and her friends, allowing them to go through. Tuka uses her magic to make the guards fall asleep, allowing the rest of 3rd Recon to enter. Itami wakes up in bed, noticing 4 maids surrounding him. He realizes that he is back in Italica. The head maid Kane then appears, telling him that Pina ordered them to tend to him. She apologizes for the rudeness of the knights, and that he is welcome to destroy the city with their aid if he wants to, as long as they do not harm Countess Mui. Itami tells her that it is completely unnecessary, much to her relief. Third Recon continues to make their way to the mansion. The bunny maid senses that someone is trying to force their way inside. The head maid tells them that it is most likely to be Itami's friends. If they are, they should be brought to him. Otherwise, they should be dealt with normally. She and the cat maid are dispatched to investigate. As they leave, Itami asks the head maid who they are. He learns that Mamina is a warrior bunny and that Persia is one of the cat people. Aurea is a Medusa and Momu is human. As Itami's friends arrive at the mansion, they are greeted by the two demi-human maids and are taken to him. Elsewhere in the mansion, Pina believes that they will need to keep Itami silent by satisfying his desires. Unaware that the situation is actually not considered a grave mistake in the other world due to the language barriers and communication lag. Boses offers to do it in her place. Back in the guest room, Itami's friends and the maids socialize with each other. Boses stands outside the room, discontent with what she has to do to keep the peace. She opens the door and finds a completely different scene. Greatly embarrassed and being completely ignored, she walks up to Itami and slaps him. The next morning, Pina is shocked by Boses' action and panics. Lele translates that the JDSF doesn't care and that Pina can do as she wishes about Boses' misconduct. Pina attempts to get them to stay for breakfast for highly unnecessary negotiations, becoming an annoyance. She is informed by Lele that Itami has to report to the Diet Japan Senate and cannot stay. Unaware that Japan's Senate doesn't function like the Empire's, Pina is afraid of what will happen and asks to come along, so she can personally apologize to his superior officer. She refuses to stay, despite the obvious non-hostility of the JDSF, so Third Recon is forced to take her and Boses. As they ride the LAVs, Boses notices that are at the outskirts of Alness in a short time compared to horseback, surprising Pina. She notices a Cobra assault helicopter flying above them, and witnesses JSDF soldiers at a shooting range. Pina asks Lele what staves the JSDF soldiers are using, only to learn that they are not staves but rifles. She also watches tanks roll through the countryside, referring to them as iron elephants. They arrive at base, and Itami makes preparations for the diet meeting. Pina tries to stall him, but is unsuccessful. Pina meets Lieutenant General Hazama, Itami's superior officer. Pina apologizes for her knight's harsh treatment of Itami, which is taken in stride, as the Empire is considered primitive and lacking foresight. Hazama thanks her for serving as a mediator between Japan and the Empire. He attempts to calm Pina by offering to alter the treaty. Unaware that he means it to be in her favor, Pina quickly shoots down the idea. Yanagita is amused by how Boses beat up Itami and wishes to learn more about it, though Hazama stops him, as the two knights are terrified. They still think trouble is brewing for the incident. Itami asks Tuka if she wants to go to Japan, so she agrees. Rory and Kato overhear and demand to go along. Itami is tired from his work and notices Lele is with him. Lele is tired and falls asleep on the spot, so Itami carries her to her room and puts her in bed before falling asleep himself. In another room, Pina and Boses contemplate about the JSDF. Boses believes that they are trying to make an excuse to prolong the war, though Pina notes that they wouldn't have been invited to the base if they did. She is confused as to what Japan is fighting for, given the massive difference between their societies. The next day, Tomita is surprised that Rory is coming along with them. Itami tells him that he got permission, and she would go crazy if she wasn't brought along. Itami then notices Pina and Boses are with them, surprised that they are going along too. Yanagita tells him that Pina is the Empire's mediator and that she and Boses are accompanying him in secret. Itami can only express his exasperation. Pina knows that beyond the gate is Japan, and she prepares herself. Itami, Tomita, Kurabayashi, Lele, Rory, Tuka, Pina, and Boses are driven through the gate and arrive in Ginza, Tokyo. The special region natives marvel at the skyscrapers and other examples of modern technology around them. Pina and Boses realize the Empire picked a fight with a civilization vastly superior to it in ways besides weaponry. Kamikato, a member of the PSIA, Public Safety Intelligence Agency, greets Itami. Kamikato tells Itami that he knows all about him, including his otaku nature, but compliments him on being a member of the Special Forces. Kurabayashi, who already has problems with Itami being a ranger, becomes visually disturbed by this. The group stops at a restaurant for lunch. Pina and Boses eat the food and find it to be delicious. Later on, they stop at a clothing store, as Tuka's shirt and jeans would not be appropriate for the Japanese diet. Lele and Rory state that their outfits are formal enough. Itami and the three girls go to the diet, while Tomita and Kurabayashi take Pina and Boses to meet with Reiko Shirayuri and Koji Sugawara. Tomita and Kurabayashi act as interpreters for Pina. Pina believes that Japan wants a ransom for the prisoners, but is surprised when Reiko tells her that ransoms are unnecessary. Reiko gives her a roster filled with the 6,000 prisoners from the Ginza incident. It's mentioned that there seems to be important figures among the humans being detained, given their behavior. Pina is surprised by the number, unaware that this world has weaponry to harmlessly knock out targets. As a show of goodwill, they allow her to choose who can be set free immediately when they meet next time. At the diet, Itami is questioned by Mizuki about the flame dragon. Mizuki asks Itami why 150 villagers were killed by the flame dragon before they were able to drive it away. Itami shrugs and plainly states that they didn't have enough firepower to drive it off. Mizuki is offended and accuses Itami of not caring for the lives of civilians. Mizuki later questions the three girls about the conditions in the camp. Lele serves as the translator for Rory and Tuka, who are not proficient in Japanese yet. Lele tells her that the losses were not the JSDF's fault. Mizuki then questions if Tuka's elf ears are real, which she responds with yes. This causes the photographers in the room to go wild and take pictures. She then questions Rory, believing that her black clothes meant that she lost family members in the attack and that the JSDF are incompetent. Rory is annoyed by Mizuki's question and suddenly speaks back in Japanese, telling her that she is stupid and a little girl. She states that the JSDF worked hard to drive off the flame dragon, which was virtually impossible for anyone to do in the special region. The JSDF are the true heroes, and that Mizuki is a fool for mocking the people who keep the nation and its people safe. Mizuki is outraged and orders Rory to respect her elders. Rory attempts to attack Mizuki, but Itami quickly puts her back into her seat and tells her that Rory is actually the oldest here. Rory states that she is 961 years old, and Tuka is 165. Mizuki looks at Lele and believes she is just as old, though she is reassured when Lele tells her that she is 15. After the diet meeting, a bus is used as a decoy due to fears of the special region natives being targeted. Kamikato manages to reunite with Itami on the subway. Boses clings onto Tomita, while Rory clings to Itami, surprising him. Rory believes that the train is headed underground, where the underground goddess Hardy is. Hardy had repeatedly tried to force Rory to marry her, and disliking men, Rory believed that clinging to Itami would drive Hardy off. Kamikato tells Itami to stick to the plan, before hearing that the path ahead has been cut off. Outside, Kamikato speaks with Itami, and the two immediately suspect that someone is trying to force them at this location if they stop the subway. Suddenly, a thief bolts with Rory's halberd, though he collapses immediately. Kamikato mocks the thief for his weakness. Itami realizes that there may be a trap at their planned hotel, but has an idea on where to go. In a dark and cold apartment, Risa is busy finishing her latest doujin, so she can submit it and pay her bills. Itami suddenly appears and offers her food, which Risa wolfs down. Everyone asks who Risa is, and Itami tells them that she is his ex-wife, shocking everyone. Itami's group is surprised that anybody would be crazy enough to marry him. Offended, Risa tells them she is not crazy. After explaining the situation to her, she allows them to stay in her apartment, but orders them not to disturb her because she is still working on her doujin. While the others sleep, Tomita asks Risa about her relationship with Itami, and she says they did not separate because they were fighting. Meanwhile, Pina and Boses are quite taken with a yaoi manga they find in the room and resolve to learn Japanese so that they can read it. The next morning, Itami decides that if their group is being targeted, The best thing they can do is go to public places so that they cannot be attacked. Itami says he'll go to Akihabara to buy some manga. Bozas and Pina ask Tomita to take them to the library, hoping to find more yaoi. Risa offers to take the rest of the girls shopping with money Itami just gave her. Rory says she is not interested at first, but then is captivated by a white dress. Tuka, Lele, and Rory all buy new outfits. Itami goes to the park and meets Defense Minister Taro Kano. Back when Itami was a boy, the two bonded over their mutual love of manga. They share small talk, and Itami gives him a new manga as a gift. Eventually, Kano orders him to return to the original plan and take their guests to the Sankai Rukaku Inn on Hakone Mountain, which is guarded by the SFG. That night, as Kano and his men monitor the situation from a control room, the SFG operatives Archer, Lancer, and Saber systematically eliminate enemy soldiers approaching the inn from the forest. Itami's group arrives at the inn and separate to the men and women's hot springs baths. As the girls undress for their bath, Archer peeps on them with his binoculars. Even though he is 450 meters away, Rory senses his presence and glares at him. Able to sense her killing intent, he becomes terrified and stops spying on them. The girls marvel at the size of the bath, and Rory tries to jump in the water. But Kurabayashi stops her and explains that they must clean themselves first so that the water does not become dirty. Itami and Tomita share the men's bath. Then Tomita becomes scared that Itami will try to seduce him, while Itami protests that he is not gay. As the girls enjoy the women's bath, Kurabayashi teases Bozes by pointing out Tomita obviously likes her. Bozes becomes shy and says knights are forbidden from having romantic relationships, but Pina playfully gropes her and asks what she likes in a man. Rory and Kurabayashi ask Risa why she married Itami and then got divorced. Risa explains that she had known Itami since they were children. When she became a manga artist, she barely earned enough money to get by. Itami had a steady income as a member of the JSDF, so she offered to marry him if he would take care of her. After the bath, a drunk Rory and Kurabayashi drag Itami and Tomita to the girls' room. The control room wonders who the enemy operatives are working for. At their urging, Archer, Saber, and Lancer unmask some of their defeated foes and find some are black or Caucasian. The President of the United States calls Prime Minister Motoi Shinzo and blackmails him with a list of corrupt cabinet members. In exchange for not revealing it to the press, he demands the operatives guarding the inn be removed so that his own operatives can capture the girls from the special region. Left with no choice, he agrees only to remove the guards. Motoi reluctantly calls the control room and orders them to withdraw their operatives, then declares he will resign so that he can no longer be blackmailed. Itami wakes up after having been knocked out to find everyone is asleep except for a drunk Rory. She is extremely aroused because of the nearby battle and asks him to help her. In the forest, Archer, Saber, and Lancer effortlessly kill any enemy soldier they encounter. Rory straddles Itami and begs him to make love to her. He protests that it is illegal to have relationships with children, but she points out she is not really a child. As her lips near his resistance starts to crumble. Rory's attempts to seduce Itami is interrupted by a phone call by Teru. The U.S. Black Ops team arrives at the inn, only to encounter the Chinese and Russian teams there too. Rory appears and a four-sided fight ensues, with Rory being the only survivor of the fight. As Itami and the rest of the group prepare to leave, he sees Rory regenerating. Rory tells him that as a demigoddess, any wound she takes automatically regenerates itself, meaning that she can never die. The group decide to leave the inn by foot. Tomita spots a suspicious van on the side. The Russian driver inside is busy relaxing when Itami, Tomita, and Kurabayashi point their guns at him. They force him out onto the road, and Kurabayashi is unsure of what to do with him. They take the van and leave the driver on the side of the road. Itami tells Tomita not to drive straight to Ginza. Pina puts her hand on Itami's shoulder. Lele tells Itami that Pina wants to know why they have to run. Itami states that he doesn't know, prompting a quick backlash from Kurabayashi, who threatens to shoot him. Pina gives her hypothesis, stating that she and Bozes are here to start peace talks with Japan, and that there must be other countries who are interested in it. In the White House, the President Dirrell is annoyed by the fact that Graham lost an entire paramilitary team and was unable to secure one of the special region inhabitants. Graham states that in the report by the paramilitary team, at a local convenience store, the heroines grab drinks from a vending machine before entering. Risa asks Itami which one he likes. She guesses that he likes Tuka based on her looks, Rory because of her personality, and Lily as someone to protect. She quickly schedules an event where the special region inhabitants will pay their respects at the Ginza Memorial. The event is an immediate success, as everyone wants to take a glimpse of them before they return, as they have become celebrities overnight. The next day, the news states that Motoi resigned following an emergency operation, although he had done so to protect the special region inhabitants and preventing Dirrell from blackmailing him. As soon as the special region inhabitants appear, they intend to create a panic, cut off the TV connections, and quickly nab them before Japan can respond. However, more people than usual have arrived, causing Graham to realize that the plan has already failed. Tomita is unable to find drive through a crowded street. Rory goes out of the van and asks a nearby person directions to Ginza. The crowd goes wild as they recognize her. Itami and the rest of the group go out and tells Risa to drive the van somewhere and abandon it. Risa is upset that Itami has to leave, but he assures her that he'll stay in touch with her. As the group makes their way to the memorial site, Nanami notices Shino. Nanami's supervisor asks her about the interview, but she cannot turn down a request from her sister. Shino speaks live, telling everyone that people had been pursuing them the last 2 days, causing delays and hotels to be on fire. Graham watches from afar with grave concern. Kamikato approaches Graham and tells him that the foreign agents have been arrested and that their superiors have abandoned the mission. Graham calls his superiors and is shocked. Dirrell is enraged that the entire CIA team has been arrested, cursing Motoi for his resignation. The Russian president is impressed with the turn of events, while the Chinese president orders his group to withdraw immediately. As the group pays their respects at the memorial, they are greeted by the sight of all the attendees wishing them farewell. They are later picked up by Karada. Returning to the Alnus base, Itami yells at Yanagita for calling that a vacation and demands 3 extra days at the end of the year. The girls use the items they bought from Japan. Tuka goes to her room, but finds her father missing. Elsewhere in the base, Pina writes a letter, stating that her visit to Japan was overwhelming and that if they continued the war, they would be surely destroyed. Pina tells Bozes that they will depart for the capital at dawn. 5 months since the gate's opening, the Alnus refugee camp develops into a town, while Pina introduces Koji Sugawara from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Lord Cicero, one of the most important nobles from the empire, and obtains his cooperation with the peace talks in exchange for the release of his nephew, who is currently in Japan's custody as a prisoner. Back in Alnus, Tuka keeps wandering the city looking for his father and refusing to accept the fact that he is already dead. As Itami and his friends discuss about it in a tavern, Mari claims that they must make her face the truth, but Itami objects, certain that they cannot be responsible for her as they don't know when they will be called back to Japan, much to Mari's dismay. Left alone with Rory, Itami keeps drinking with her until a dark elf woman appears and, mistaking Rory as a child, reprimands Itami for having a drink with her. With her plans to spend the night with Itami ruined, Rory mischievously plays along with the dark elf's misunderstanding, forcing Itami to flee, with the elf unaware Itami was one of the men in green, the JSDF soldiers she was looking for. The dark elf introduces herself as Yauha Dusi and offers a huge adamantium stone as a reward for helping her village that is being attacked by the fire dragon, which is why she has come to Alnus to seek the JSDF's aid. Having no success, Yao looks for a place to rest outside the town when she watches 2 F-4 fighter jets maneuvering in some exercises and a helicopter taking off with Itami with some goods from the base heading towards the imperial capital, renewing her hopes that the Japanese forces will help save her people from the dragon. Yao's attempts to ask the JSDF for help fails, as most of the soldiers do not speak or know little of the local language. She is soon arrested by the military police after attacking several thugs who mistakes her for a prostitute. Lele, having improved her magic thanks to chemistry books she read on Earth, is called by the JSDF to serve as Yao's interpreter. After learning her story, General Hazama tells Yao that he cannot help her as her home, Schwartz Forest, is located in the Elba Kingdom, which is outside the borders of the Empire. As the Japanese are currently in peace talks with the Empire, sending troops over their border would only reignite conflict. With Yao devastated with the news, some soldiers sympathize with her, with Lieutenant Akira Yanagita suggesting Yao could ask Itami for help. Elsewhere, Itami and his men deliver goods from Japan to Pina and Hamilton as part of their plan to win over more nobles to seek peace with Japan. Before leaving, Itami gives Pina a yaoi dojin translated by Boses and Panache, which, unknown to him, contains newspaper clipping of Itami's heroic actions. As Itami heads back to base and hopes peace between both sides, Lele narrates the war is far from over.